Tonight on War Stories, from the battlefields of World War II to Iraq.
I said, I want you to shoot me. I want you to take my life. I don't want to go on.
They've gone from despair to triumph.
They told me, you can't do this? I'm thinking, the hell I can't.
The mechanical miracles that help bring them back.
I think boosted up my morale and seeing those amputees skiing, playing soccer, you name it, they're doing it.
Disabled veterans, the fight of their lives. That's next on War Stories. Welcome to War Stories. I'm Oliver North, and this is the Department of Veterans Affairs Medical Center in Martinsburg, West Virginia, one of 158 such hospitals across the country providing medical, surgical, and rehabilitative care. 2.3 million of America's veterans are disabled, men and women who, while putting their lives on the line for our country, lost limbs or sustained some other devastating injury. Injuries which meant certain death just 3 decades ago are now survivable. But those who have them are in for the fight of their lives. Day-to-day living becomes a never-ending battle to do the things that most of us take for granted. The men you're going to meet tonight will inspire you. From World War II to Afghanistan and Iraq, they've overcome extraordinary adversity with undeniable spirit. And for many, what seemed like the end was in fact a new beginning. It's a typical Friday morning in a lab at Walter Reed Army Medical Center in Washington, D.C. War Stories is there as prosthetist Andy Steele gets ready for the first fitting of a state-of-the-art leg on 30-year-old Marine Sergeant Luke Cassidy from Woodbury, Minnesota. A 10-year Marine veteran, Luke lost his left leg 2 months ago when an IED exploded beneath his Humvee in Ramadi, Iraq.
We're fitting Luke with a suction-style prosthesis. It has a locking mechanism that he will lock into, and that's what will suspend the prosthesis. So we'll slide this on and have Luke stand up. Okay. Put a little bit of weight into it. Great. And stand nice and even. Okay. Great. How's it feel?
A little tight, but it feels good, sir.
Good. Good. We'll be a little snug probably the first day or so.
Yes, sir.
Let's see. Okay. We'll shorten the pylon a little bit to get you level, and then from there we'll do some walking.
Great.
Andy returns to the lab to make a few last-minute adjustments before Luke can take his first steps.
This was actually made in a lab back in Iowa, and we send out a cast to them. They use a computer-aided design system to fabricate the socket, and then that's sent back to us for fitting.
How much does this cost?
We'll probably run anywhere between $12,000 to $14,000.
How long have you been doing this, Andy?
I've been doing this for about 12, 13 years now.
How'd you get started?
I'm actually an amputee myself.
You're kidding me.
No, the lower left leg. I lost it when I was 12 years old in a farm accident.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Do these guys know that when you first walk in there?
Initially, no, they don't. And I try not to share that with them. It's always better for them, I think, to find out later.
An anxious Luke waits patiently.
Just a half a step, okay? Most of your weight on your hands. Bring your crutches forward. There you go. All right, let's do another one. And half a step, that's good. Straighten out that knee as you come through. Great. Nice and easy. How you doing, Luke?
I'm doing really well.
Nice and easy. There you go. Great job. Good job.
Come here.
Great job, man. Great job.
Thank you.
No problem. My pleasure. Thank you.
How long was it before you found out that Andy had an artificial leg?
That's amazing.
You didn't know?
No, I didn't know.
A little encouraging?
Yeah, it is. It kind of gave me a belief that there was a ray of hope.
That ray of hope has been a long time coming. Dale Smith is the chairman of the Department of Medical History at the Uniformed Services University at Bethesda, Maryland. If a soldier was wounded in the Revolutionary War, what kind of medical treatment was available to him?
What you frequently got was rough and ready exploration, crude amputations, a lot of what we would say were infections. They, of course, had no germ theory. Death rates were very high in hospitals. By the time you get to the Civil War, you have more trauma being created. On the other hand, you have better hospitals, and mortality in those hospitals is considerably lower than it was in the Revolutionary War hospitals.
But lower mortality rates meant more disabled veterans. Although 600,000 Americans were killed in the Civil War, 2 million veterans survived it, some with horrific injuries.
War has gotten uglier by the 1860s than it was in the 1780s.
During his second inaugural address, President Abraham Lincoln said the nation needed to care for him who shall have borne the battle and for his widow and orphan. In 1866, Congress established the National Home for Disabled Volunteer Soldiers, which provided housing and medical care for Union but not Confederate veterans disabled in the war.
In World War I, it's the first time in the American Army that more people will die of enemy action than disease.
The Great War marked the beginning of modern warfare. The use of mustard gas, machine guns, and mines accounted for many of the grisly injuries inflicted on the 204,000 Americans who returned home with gas-seared lungs, prolonged illnesses, and amputated limbs.
If you had a major artery damaged, you would lose the limb because the blood supply could not be restored.
In 1918, the U.S. government passed the Soldiers Rehabilitation Act. It provided vocational retraining to disabled World War I veterans. But that wasn't enough for one of its disabled veterans, a judge from Cincinnati named Robert Marks.
He saw the need for some kind of coordinated services provided for the government to take care of wounded and gassed veterans from World War I, and it was a totally smorgasbord of benefits that were available, if any at all.
David Gorman, a veteran who lost both legs from a booby trap in Vietnam, is an executive director of the group Marks founded in 1920, the Disabled American Veterans.
He decided to bring a group of veterans together to try to lobby Congress and the administration to put together what we now know as the Department of Veterans Affairs to take care of veterans' needs.
The Veterans Administration was born, and the benefits structure expanded. The pension program for needy wartime veterans.
From 2001 to 2005, Vietnam veteran Anthony Principi served as the Secretary of the Department of Veterans Affairs, formerly known as the Veterans Administration. Their annual budget is $64 billion.
We're just trying to provide training and opportunities, independent living for veterans who are catastrophically injured on the battlefield so that they can get on with their life, be productive, be successful.
The Disabled Veterans Rehabilitation Act of 1943 provided job training for World War II's 621,000 disabled veterans who returned to civilian life. What are the three most important things that a disabled veteran needs?
Good, competent, timely, quality medical care. They need a program of rehabilitation to overcome that disability and to achieve gainful, meaningful employment so they can live the American dream.
My parents, to them it seemed like the end of the road.
Julius Wagman was barely 18 years old when a German mortar round landed in his foxhole during the Battle of the Bulge. The blast took off the Army private's right leg and severely injured his left. The Brooklyn, New York native arrived at Walter Reed Hospital in early 1945.
It was a difficult time, a great deal of pain. I put myself in their hands, and no one else to turn to. At Walter Reed, there were services where they fitted prosthesis and gave you lessons on how to walk.
Julius spent countless hours learning how to move around with a prosthetic leg, and he had one other thing on his side. He was a born optimist.
The realization that I get from here to there, because I could put that leg on and move, was something that I was amazed with, and I just wanted to keep going. I remember pain. I don't really remember any depression because I think I always felt I was moving ahead.
But the one thing he'll never forget is just how close he came to being a double amputee.
The fact that they were able to save that left leg was always a matter of question. I still have shrapnel in my knee.
To this day, Julius isn't shy about showing off his legs.
It's above the knee, so I don't have any control of the lower portion. And it's basically a swinging hinge, as you can see. And in order to walk, you propel it forward, hit the heel, roll over, and take another step.
As the teenager healed at Walter Reed, Julius dreamed of going on a real date.
a friend of mine arranged a blind date with Gloria.
I was consumed with curiosity. And I think I got a little cross-eyed that day trying to see what a guy with one leg looked like. Only, of course, he was wearing his prosthesis. So we said hi, and I guess that was it.
That was the beginning and an indication to me that there was life after amputation.
When War Stories returns, Julius discovers that not everybody will accept his disability, and Hollywood changes the image of the disabled veteran. Stay tuned.
The day that they called me down and said, "This is it, you're going to be discharged," then I was scared.
It was 1946, 2 years after he lost his right leg at the Battle of the Bulge, and Julius Wegman was ready to be released from Walter Reed Hospital.
It was scary and frightened of having to go out and being taken out of the cocoon.
Although Julius had the love and support of his now fiancée Gloria, her mother was adamantly opposed to their wedding.
She was very unhappy with the whole idea that her daughter should end up marrying an amputee.
Not liking it is putting it mildly. I was almost thrown out of the house, and I had to leave school because she wasn't going to pay for my tuition. It was never an issue with us because we just didn't care. We knew we were going to get married.
Gloria and Julius married in 1948. Julius eventually won over his mother-in-law and slowly put his shattered life back together.
The counselors assured me that it would be a good idea to go back, become a bookkeeper, because I wouldn't have to do much walking. Fortunately, being an accountant, you don't do it with your legs. It's not Fred Astaire work.
Released in 1946, the film The Best Years of Our Lives went a long way in changing how America perceived the disabled veteran. It's a timeless story of how three returning vets struggled to transition back into civilian life, encountering a fight at home that rivaled what they'd endured on the battlefield. The classic film featured a real-life World War II amputee, Harold Russell. Having lost both hands in an explosion while training troops, Russell was discovered by director William Wyler in an Army film entitled Diary of a Sergeant.
So I sat there thinking of how I would have done it if I had met a girl like that when I still had my hands.
In Best Years of Our Lives, Russell gave a moving performance as Homer Parrish, a veteran trying to readjust to civilian life without his hands. Russell was awarded 2 Oscars, one for Best Supporting Actor and a special Oscar for bringing hope and courage to his fellow veterans.
I thought it was good for the public to see someone come back, and it showed a success story.
It was 30 below with wind gusts of 60 below.
28 November 1950. Richard Bernard, a 20-year-old Marine corporal from Newark, New Jersey, was shot in both legs in blizzard conditions at North Korea's frozen Chosin Reservoir.
The weather really saved our lives because you couldn't bleed. The wound was frozen.
Surrounded by Chinese troops, Bernard was moved to a tent on a hill where he and other wounded lay for 6 long days. When their sea rations froze, there was nothing to eat, and extreme frostbite set in.
My feet turned black.
When they were finally rescued and evacuated to a hospital in Japan, Bernard arrived with an unusual request.
I said I wanted a big bottle of milk. That's all I wanted. So they gave me the big bottle of milk. In the morning, the feet were still on, and they were black. I said, all I want you to do is take me upstairs now and take them off. I don't want to sit here and look at those feet. I can't take it. If I have to look at them, I know they're going to go. So they took me up, and they took them off.
A few weeks later, he was transferred from Japan to California's Oakland Naval Hospital. There, Richard called his parents to give them the grim news.
His mom, I'm all right. I've got a banged up leg. I didn't tell her about the amputations because I was afraid she could have a heart attack. I didn't lie, but I didn't tell her everything.
But even during their painful recovery, Richard and his new buddy found time to engage in a little mischief.
I was there with another fellow, double amputee, exact same amputations. He said, come on, let's get out of here. He had car keys. And we went out, and we got in the car. We put the wheelchairs in the back. I got on the floor. He got on the top. We practiced, and we went. We got over the hill to Frisco, and we had $1.50. We had 2 beers and a sandwich. So we got back in the car. I wanted to steer, and he got on the floor. And I hit side of the bridge and split a tire. And there's a flashing light behind us pulling up. There's the cops. And they come up and they were like, did we see me? Couldn't see him down there. I said, get out. I said, can't. The ward got a big kick out of it.
At the end of January 1951, he was moved to Philadelphia Naval Hospital, closer to his parents' home in New Jersey. He never forgot seeing them that first time without his legs.
My mother took it pretty bad until she went upstairs. She saw the other guys. My father kind of held it back and kind of kept her strong. You do feel sorry for yourself, but as soon as I was able to get out of bed, I saw a guy with 2 hands off, 2 legs off. I saw a blind guy. He used to push me down to the cafeteria. I used to be his eyes. They were a hell of a lot worse off than I.
Choppers come to the rescue in the jungles of Vietnam. That's next on War Stories. First used in Korea, by Vietnam, the military relied heavily on helicopters to help save the severely wounded.
Helicopter gunships can go into the battle zone and remove patients and fly them to the hospital. And people who would have bled to death now are saved by the surgeon.
Without that bird, we could not have done the things we did in Vietnam. Unprecedented medical care and treatment.
I knew I was bulletproof. I knew that until the 4th of July, 1968, when I found out I wasn't.
23-year-old Marine Bob Eisenbach was a California native and the son of a career naval officer. While on a reconnaissance patrol outside Da Nang, the young platoon commander was hit in the head by an enemy bullet.
Nicked the brain, opened one of the largest blood-carrying cavities in my brain.
Do you remember being hit?
I don't. I remember becoming conscious again.
You're paralyzed. You can't
I didn't
move.
know I was paralyzed, but the world was moving in slow motion. Sounds were muffled. Things were in black and white. It was a very, very strange sensation.
How long were you there before they could get you on a medevac helicopter?
Probably about 4 hours. My corpsman pulled out every trick in the book that morning to keep me alive. I arrested 3 times that morning only, and 3 times the corpsman got me going again.
Eisenbach was flown to the Naval Hospital in nearby Da Nang, where he again went into cardiac arrest.
What I remember was a distant voice saying, negative vital signs. And then there was this incredible pressure on my chest as someone started CPR.
4th time now it stopped.
Exactly.
They get you right into surgery right away?
Well, I found out that they had removed bone and rock fragments from my brain.
Does anybody say, hey man, you really hurt bad?
No, I was kind of left to my own devices to discover that, gee, my legs don't move. Gee, my left arm doesn't move. I can't talk. My vision's a little bit blurry. I was helpless. The best I could do was just muster tears.
We've been in the field about 14 days, which was a pretty long run for us.
21 July 1968. As Bob Eisenbach fought for his life, 24-year-old Chad Colley, a newly married Army Rifle Company commander from Fort Riley, Kansas, was on patrol searching for the enemy. Suddenly, a huge explosion.
Dirt, rocks, sticks, and all this stuff was raining down on me, and I tried to get up. And for some reason, I couldn't get up. And then I looked down and saw that both my legs were gone. The left leg was off at the knee, but the thigh bone was exposed all the way to the hip.
Chad had stepped on a booby-trapped artillery round.
My first emotion was I was angry. I mean, I was an airborne ranger. My career is over. And then my second thought was I wanted to die. I had been married 6 weeks, and I just could not go back to a new bride this way. And then my third thought was, I want to live. And I want to live so badly that right here, right now, I will accept what has happened to me if I can live and get out of this country.
What is it that makes a man plumb those depths, if you will, in those kinds of circumstances?
I have a deep spiritual faith, and I knew that if I bled to death right there, I didn't worry about where I was going to spend eternity. Well, if you set that aside, then most of the other stuff is manageable. And I said that I accepted those consequences. I never have played why me or why this or if that or any of that, not once ever. It's all a negative drain, and I have too much to live for.
In a moment of absolute despair, a wounded warrior begs his father to end his misery. It's the turning point in his long road back. That's next on War Stories. In 1968, 17,000 Americans were killed in Vietnam. Another 87,000 were wounded. Among those badly injured were Chad Colley and Bob Eisenbach. They did not expect you to live.
Don't know really what they expected of me. Brain injuries, each one is unique.
Near death, with much of his skull missing from being shot in the head on 4 July, 23-year-old Marine Bob Eisenbach was flown to an Army hospital in Japan. 2 weeks later, he was transferred to Bethesda Naval Hospital in Maryland, still believing it was only a matter of time before he'd rejoin his troops.
My plan was back in Vietnam by Christmas because I felt that I had let my troops down by getting myself shot. Obviously, that didn't happen.
But they weren't about to tell you that.
With each succeeding day, I was coming to that understanding myself. I was having these violent muscle spasms. My left arm would come up and I would literally punch myself.
When you start treatment at Bethesda, that treatment consists of what?
Physical therapy twice a day, a lot of starting to do things for yourself very slowly, feeding yourself, handling silverware, handling glasses, handling coffee cups, that sort of thing.
They kept you for a year.
They had to put a metal plate in my head in order to make it round again and essentially to protect the underlying tissue. They waited a year and then put the plate in. And after that, I was retired from the Marine Corps. That is a bitter blow, let me tell you, Ollie, to find yourself retired at the tender age of 24.
My parents and my wife got a telegram stating basically I'd lost both legs and part of my arm and my condition was grave. For all they knew, I wasn't going to live through the next day.
But he did. 2 weeks after Eisenbach was badly wounded, 24-year-old Army Ranger Chad Colley was a triple amputee after stepping on a booby trap. As soon as he was able, he wrote to his new bride, Betty Ann.
I said, "Hi, darling. As you know, the old Viet Cong tried to get me a couple of days back. Even though I'm banged up pretty bad, I'm still me. I can put my loss of limbs into an asset. I have a big challenge to undertake now. I will need your help, not your sympathy."
A month after being wounded, Chad was flown to Brooke Army Hospital at Fort Sam Houston in San Antonio, Texas. Are they at that point talking to you about rehabilitation and therapy?
They were telling me that I need to prepare for limitations, and part of this I was readily willing to accept because there are certain realities. They had lumped me with guys who perhaps had not had the intensive training of the U.S. Army Rangers. So part of it was such a challenge. They told me, "You can't do this?" I'm thinking, the hell I can.
Shunning prosthetic legs for a wheelchair, Chad made such great progress that by Christmas of 1968, he was an outpatient.
They say, "Why were you in such a hurry?" I said, "Prisoners get conjugal visits, but patients in the VA hospital ain't got a prayer." Plus, I just couldn't wait to take on life and see what I could do. I was selling real estate full-time, 11 months from the date I was injured in Vietnam. Sometimes it was real difficult for me to show houses and stuff like that, but I had one really distinct advantage. If someone ever went with me to look at a piece of property, they never, ever forgot me.
On the 16th of September, we woke up early and we formed into convoy. There was 5 Amtraks.
16 September 1969, as Chad Colley put his new life back together as a realtor, the pride of small town Del Rio, Texas, a 21-year-old Marine named Roberto "Bobby" Barrera was 50 miles south of Da Nang, Vietnam. He was riding in the 3rd Amtrak of a convoy, along with legendary Marine Corps sniper Carlos Hathcock. Being the top sniper in the war, he was known to the enemy.
He was aware and watching and made the selection of taking the 3rd track.
Suddenly, there was a huge explosion as a command-detonated mine exploded beneath the Amtrak carrying Bobby and Hathcock. As the Amtrak's fuel tank ignited, there was a blinding second explosion.
We all get engulfed by the flames. And then Carlos Hadcock started hurling everyone. He hurled me off the burning crack. Everything's burning. And I land into the rice paddy. My jacket, my clothing is all singed.
All badly burned, Barrera and the other Marines were medevaced to a Navy hospital ship and heavily sedated. Within a week, they arrived at the burn center at Brooke Army Hospital at Fort Sam Houston.
All of us were severely burned, 45%, the second and third degree burning. We were all in the same ward. So I could see how badly burned they were. And I think that is when I finally realized I'm in some deep trouble here.
There at Fort Sam, he saw his parents for the first time after being terribly burned.
I remember Mom and Dad walking in, and then they stayed by my side a while.
The treatment for burns, even today, is still terribly painful.
Once a day, they would put in what was called a Hudler tank, and it's basically a stainless steel tub, and they fill it up with 2 or 3 inches of water, and they give you some morphine. They kind of have to hold you down because they proceed to scrub directly over the burns, and it's the most painful thing that anyone can go through. You could hear the hollering throughout the ward because it was so painful.
28 September 1969 was one of his darkest days.
I had contacted an infection, phycomycosis, like a fungus that eats flesh at an extremely rapid rate. I had it on my hand, on my fingers, and the doctor said, Bobby, we're going to have to remove 2 of your fingers. I started thinking, that's 2 of my fingers, well, I think I can live with that. So they wheeled me into surgery. When I get back and I look down, the whole hand is gone, nothing. It's off at the wrist.
The infection then spread to his left arm. The doctors amputated it at his shoulder.
Phycomycosis, it had developed on my upper lip. So they removed my entire upper lip from both sides of my mouth to the bottom of my nose, so my whole gums are exposed.
Bobby spent 3 months in intensive care, then suffered through 32 operations. At some point along the line, you decide this is just too tough to bear.
I was still at the burn center, and I had already lost my arm and my hands, and I didn't want to go on. I didn't want to live. And my father was the chief of police. He always carried a gun, all the time. And I was in intensive care, and he walked in, and I asked him, Dad, do you have your gun with you? And he said, yeah. And he asked me why. And I said, I want you to shoot me. I want you to take my life. I don't want to go on. He stood there and we talked for a long time. And we laughed, we cried. And until he knew, he had talked me out of that. He had carried me during that moment of weakness.
Fitted with prosthetics on both arms, Bobby got a little bit of sound advice from one of his counselors.
She said, people are going to stare because you're different, you don't have any hands. You better learn to deal with it or stay home and go down the drain.
For Bobby, the road back was going to be a long one.
My life had no direction. There were some weak moments. But somehow, someone was always there to carry me.
There's a particular woman who becomes a big part of that.
One of my best friends was dating one of her sisters. And he told me about, hey, she has 4 other sisters. I said, yes, I know. There's one in particular that caught my eye. And I said, fix me up with her.
When you first saw him, terribly disfigured, lost an arm, what did you think?
It's hard to describe my feelings at that time, but I knew that he was going to be able to succeed in life because I knew the person he was.
Were you concerned that a beautiful woman might not want to be close to a guy who's as disfigured as you were?
Oh, absolutely. I was very aware of being disfigured, not only facially, but my hands not being able to do things. Yet she made me feel so comfortable. She accepted me like I was a normal person.
Coming up, more of Bobby's amazing comeback. This is the Landstuhl Regional Medical Center, the hospital in Germany to which the most seriously injured and wounded from Iraq and Afghanistan are evacuated. Here, burn victims, amputees are stabilized before being sent back to the U.S. for further treatment. There's more ahead. Don't go away. You and I are both Vietnam-era guys. Is there any difference between the casualties that we're seeing today in Iraq and Afghanistan and those that we saw then?
Today, body armor, battlefield medicine is so much more improved than it was back in Vietnam. And what the docs are doing over there, the medics and the corpsmen, are just incredible.
What kind of injuries are you seeing?
Mostly blast injury. A lot of extremity blast injury and head and eye injuries.
Commander Peter Marco is a U.S. Navy doctor at the Regional Medical Center in Landstuhl, Germany. Opened in 1953, it's the largest U.S. military hospital outside the United States. More than 18,000 troops wounded in Iraq and another 3,000 from Afghanistan have been treated at Landstuhl.
Once they arrive here, we assess the severity of their injuries. We have neurosurgery, thoracic surgery, general surgery, critical care.
There appears to be better preparation of the guy that's seriously wounded. It's going to change his life. Does it start here, or does it start right there on the battlefield?
I think it starts the entire time. Most of the doctors in Iraq contact the family. Once they arrive here, the family is well informed. I think just the passage of what's to be expected helps with that recovery.
At Landstuhl, War Stories visited with 21-year-old Army Specialist Chad Johnson from Lockhart, Texas, who lost his left leg in a car bomb blast in Iraq.
I talked to my mom for about an hour and a half, 2 hours this morning.
How's she doing?
She's doing pretty good now.
Is she been over here?
No, she's gonna meet me at Walter Reed. She's gonna stay with me the whole time.
Within a week of our visit, Chad was at Walter Reed Army Medical Center in Washington, D.C., under the care of doctors like Paul Pesquina, who's the medical director of the hospital's amputee program. You've got a lot of families here. Moms, dads, spouses. Does that change their recovery pattern at all?
Absolutely it does. Being able to provide services to their family members so that they can stay here on post, participate with them in therapy, and help to take care of them on the wards, I think is extremely rewarding.
At Walter Reed, the families of the wounded can stay in the Fisher House, a temporary lodging facility on the hospital's grounds. First started in 1990 by construction magnate and philanthropist Zachary Fisher and his wife Elizabeth, there are now 32 of them near major military and VA hospitals throughout the world, with more on the way. Chad Johnson's mother stayed in one as he recuperated. What have they been doing for you here?
A lot more surgeries altogether. I've had 13, a lot of physical therapy, a lot of on-the-job type therapy.
How you feeling?
Overall, pretty good. Mom's still here, taking care of me.
What are they telling you about the future?
There's no end to the future. There's all kinds of jobs he can do. He can do all kinds of sports. As long as he puts his mind to it, that's the one thing here at Walter Reed. You never give up hope.
Chad has begun working with Orrin Gans, one of Walter Reed's occupational therapists.
Our goal here is to not just strengthen him, return him back to his normal state, but also to teach him all those life skills that he was able to do beforehand. So I guess I want you to come alongside, bring yourself as close as you can, kind of parallel to the car.
Work with that right there.
Thanks. There you go. Just going to support you if you need it. How was that?
It's tiring. I'm tired now.
Do you get a sense that the average Joe getting out of the military, or Jane, understands all of the benefits that they really are entitled to? I mean, quite honestly, I didn't.
Absolutely not. The VA has counselors stationed. I know a bunch of them up at Walter Reed to make sure that these young men and women do become aware of, at least, the benefits they're entitled to. It's a quagmire of benefits, and it's a hard thing to get the word to everybody, but we do try.
Walter Reed is terrific. They go the extra mile. As caring as the staff is, none of them are amputees.
One of the DAV members spreading the word about benefits for the disabled veteran is New Yorker Don Sayos. He lost his left leg after stepping on a booby trap in Vietnam. He and other disabled vets visit the wounded at Walter Reed's Ward 57 to share their experiences.
You got the knee. That makes a big difference. How long are you going home for?
I'm going home for 4 days.
We just talk to the men. Try to be an inspiration for them. We let them know that there are a myriad of benefits out there. It can be very confusing. When you're lying in a hospital bed after having lost an arm or a leg, A lot of questions going through your mind.
First couple of days, you're depressed. You're like, oh, life is over.
23-year-old Army Sergeant Eric Castro from Santa Ana, California, spent 6 months at Walter Reed after losing his left leg when an RPG hit his armored personnel carrier in Iraq in August of 2003. For him, talking to veterans like Don Sayos made a big difference.
Maybe some doctor thinks he knows what you're going through, according to the books. But the guy lost a limb. He knows exactly what you're going through. We started getting visitors, like a double amputee from Vietnam. I didn't know that guy was an amputee until like 2-3 weeks later after I met him. Seeing those guys, those amputees, other veterans, skiing, playing soccer, I mean, you name it, they're doing it. That I think boosted up my morale and psychologically helped me out a lot.
When War Stories returns, a triple amputee takes up a new sport, competitive skiing. Stay tuned.
Ever heard of phantom pains? If your legs are cut off, you actually feel your feet, and you can wiggle your toes, and you feel they're still there.
After losing both legs to gunshot wounds and frostbite in Korea, Richard Bernard returned home to New Jersey, working in Newark's unemployment office before becoming a political advocate for the disabled.
We started an association, 21st Infantry Association. We still get together. We have a blast. It's just tremendous emotionally to realize that you still have that bond, and that bond will never be broken.
Do you ever play shoulda, woulda, coulda, what if?
Don't do it. No point in it. Can't change it. Like the bumper sticker says, stuff happens. I came to the realization, why not you, Eisenbach? Who are you?
Despite his brain injury, Bob Eisenbach earned a PhD and worked as a speech pathologist for nearly 20 years. Married since 1978 to Sherry Lynn, they have 3 grown children. He's now working in a 3rd career as a financial planner.
I think every day that I've had since 4 July 1968 has been a gift because I shouldn't be here.
Chad Colley went on to a successful career in real estate and banking. He even served as the national commander of the Disabled American Veterans. Despite being a triple amputee, he kept a promise he made to himself while in the hospital in Vietnam. He got his pilot's license, but he didn't stop there. How'd you get involved in snow skiing?
A 10th Mountain Division ski trooper from World War II set me up. I'm going to say no. No, it wasn't in there.
Not a ranger?
No, sir. So, boy, I did it. I said, this is great. And I began to ski competitively in 1985. And in 1988, I was asked to join the U.S. ski team, and we skied in Albertville in '92, and I won 2 gold medals.
Chad, what's been the hardest thing for you since that terrible day in July of 1968?
There are times when I'm frustrated, like trying to put the lens back in my glass, you know, things like that frustrate me. But I try and maintain a positive attitude, and I absolutely refuse to let what happened to me in Vietnam in a few brief seconds to any way impede or suggest or color who I am today. Life's just too great to let some little event screw it up like that.
Looking into Chad's heart is easy, it's huge. He's such a kind, caring person who inspires others, just being around him.
You can be with Bobby and completely lose sight of the fact he's a disabled veteran. He has such a sincere, happy demeanor that you just love it.
After being badly wounded in September '69, it took Bobby several years to emerge from the dark world in which he found himself adrift.
It's not till we got married in April of 1974 that everything really changed. And I said, I wonder if I could go back to college with the disability. And she went with me initially to all the classes. She'd sit across my desk and would hold a paper so it wouldn't slide all around the desk.
In 1978, Bobby graduated from St. Mary's University in San Antonio, Texas, with a bachelor's degree in psychology.
Under my name in the diploma, I wrote in hers because she's the lady that made it possible.
Deciding he wanted to be a counselor, Bobby earned a master's degree. Now he and his wife have 3 adopted children, and Bobby was director of the Family Support Center at Laughlin Air Force Base near his hometown of Del Rio, Texas. He's also a powerful motivational speaker.
We all have a purpose in life, and mine was to help others. And it took a heavy price to mold me into the person I am. Colonel, there's no way I would have become the man that I am if it hadn't happened to me. Do I wish it hadn't happened? Absolutely. It happened. I can't control it. I move forward.
More on the fight of their lives when War Stories continues. Admiral Bull Halsey, the great World War II leader, once said, "There aren't any great men, just great challenges that ordinary men like you and me are forced by circumstances to meet." The veterans who met the challenges that life-changing injuries thrust upon them truly define courage and perseverance. For all the disabled veterans, their families, and the medical teams on the front lines and here at home, theirs is a war story that deserves to be told. I'm Oliver North. Good night.
Now, Fox News Channel's acclaimed series, War Stories with Oliver North, is now available on videotape. Call now, 1-800-933-0760. That's 1-800-933-0760. Or visit our website at foxnews.com/war stories. See and hear first-hand accounts of events that changed the course of history. Call now, 1-800-933-0760. Or visit our website at foxnews.com/war stories. Credit card orders only, please.
The fair and balanced philosophy is basically don't be exclusionary.
We're going to give all points of view.
It's smart TV, it's fun, and it's about issues that affect all of us.
We find unique angles on the news. We find ways to debate them.
And then we let the American people decide for themselves.
Fox News, it's fast, smart, it's independent.
It's information packaged in a very informative and entertaining way.
On the Fox News Channel, you hear everybody. And that's what fair and balanced is.